Welcome to our podcast. The aim of these podcasts is to explore a wide range of issues around the workplace, around technology, and we hope that you're going to take something of interest from them. We're very lucky at InterQuest to be able to draw from a wide range of our clients, of our collaborators, of a broad range of contacts, all of whom are experts in their individual area. So we hope that you enjoy it, we hope that you take something from it, and we very much look forward to hearing from you. Earlier today, I was joined by Joe Baguley. Joe is the CTO and Vice President of VMware for EMEA. Joe is one of the rare polymaths that I've ever met across my life. We spend just over an hour talking about a wide range of issues in technology, around where he got to in his career today and how he got there. And we end up with a kind of passion project of his around electric vehicles. But we hope that you'll really enjoy it and enjoy it as much as we did in meeting Joe. So, Joe, thank you for joining us today. I've written down an introduction because I'm going to forget some stuff and not do you any justice. So, for the record, Joe and I have known each other for 15 years. I forget almost when I know when we first came in contact with each other in a separate strand to your semi-professional working life as a photographer. Well, actually, as a photography company that you had with another friend of yours. Where
Still do, yeah.
Very kind and took some wonderful photographs that are still on the wall of my children as they're growing up.
It was in and the best thing is that it's in a cricket pavilion in a village green.
That's right.
Which pops up in every other episode of Midsummer Murders.
That's a story in its own right.
Yeah.
So we've known each other for ages. You're the Vice President and CTO for EMEA for VMware. Yeah. So we would talk to you to find out what's happening after the next best thing in technology. So thank you very much. I'm sure we're going to talk about some of that today. You've been there for 9 years. You were at Quest Software before that for 10 years. So a life in technology. In fact, our own CTO reminded you of someone you worked with probably 30 years
before
ago.
That, yeah.
Just a minute ago. As well as being strategic advisor to InterQuest Group, and I'll have to look at this now, you are also a judge at the Tech Trailblazers, a non-executive director at Transforming Systems, a founding committee member of the Data Centre Specialist Group at the British Computer Society, shaping the European Code of Conduct for data centres. You are regularly on the BBC worldwide. Last time I saw that was Fringe Computing.
Edge, yeah, with Aaron, yeah.
That's right. Contributing to several national newspapers only a couple of weeks ago. You're in City AM. You've won awards for data leadership and infrastructure and protection. You're regularly in the Computer Weekly kind of UK top 50. And that's everything that everyone knows about you in the public domain. Also, they know you on a private level. Everything to do with electric vehicles, electric bicycles, electric storage at your home.
Yep.
We've already touched on photography. What people might not know about you is that you're a pyromaniac as well. Is that the correct term?
I think a fully qualified pyrotechnician is the best way to put it, but I am a pyromaniac.
Yeah, so some of those lovely kind of displays you have at New Year, where we look at London, you've done that.
The current reigning British champion of champions.
There you go. There you are. Yeah. Look at that. So perhaps you didn't know that about Joe, but I think, so where do we start with all of that? I think we've got a lot of ground to cover today, but can we start off with what on earth do you do for a living then?
I wish I knew. It's one of those things I try and describe it to my children. It's very difficult.
I've read, what do you do, Dad? I just tell jokes for a living. But that's worn thin as well.
So, VP and CTO EMEA at VMware. I think you have to kind of understand a little bit about VMware first. And so, without doing the big sales pitch, we're a big multinational global company with revenues in excess of $10 billion, 30,000 people. We're 21 years old. And we're sort of leading innovators in the market, and have been growing, with double-digit growth for 21 plus years, which is phenomenal for a company of our size.
Yep.
Within that, we have a thing called the Office of the CTO. So we have a CTO who's my boss, a guy called Greg Lavender, and we then have regional CTOs. I cover Europe, Middle East, and Africa. I've got my colleague Bruce Davey, who covers APJ, and another one Cameron, who covers North America, or the Americas.
Yeah.
And we're responsible for, I suppose, strategy, innovation, and technology direction for the company. That's the best way to understand that. So my job is split 50-50. So I have 50% is Chief Technology Officer, as I sort of described. So, we're working on what's next. And then the other 50% I call is Chief Talking Officer, which is, all the stuff you kind of listed, which is, the public face that you see, like this morning presenting at an event and so on and so forth, talking about not just VMware, but, trends I see. And that, I think, that's probably a good way to understand what I do in my job. I talk about it as currency. Okay, and when I mentor people internally about coming up this sort of path, it's very important to talk about currency. And currency has two meanings in English, really, right? So currency is to be current. So my job is to make sure that I'm sort of up to speed on all the latest tech and have an understanding and a handle on it. And I was thinking actually on the way here, it's very interesting that it's to take a scientific method to that. So it's to look at something new, not come to an immediate conclusion, but to come to an opinion that can then be happily changed on the basis of new evidence. So that's the sort of first thing.
Sounds like Brexit.
Sorry?
Sounds like an approach to Brexit.
Something like, let's not...
Over the years it's changed.
Yeah, well, it has.
But I guess it's keeping the art of the possible then.
Yeah, I think it's being current with the latest technology, understanding when someone says, buzzword X, I go, okay, well, let me tell you what I know about buzzword X and buzzword Y. So, and I work as an internal advisor to the team the EMEA management team, so the team that runs EMEA for VMware, so that's sales, finance, technical, pre-sales, post-sales, everything. I am an advisor to that board of people as to how we approach certain technology. Should we invest more time in this, or do we really need to go and hire 50 people that are specialists in this yet? Because actually we're not going to see that as a real market that our customers are going to want to invest in until 2023. So let's that kind of thing. And then the other thing is more sort of currency in terms of value. And that is, I'm inbound back into R&D, to our research, the guys that write all our software. And there I'm very much the voice of the field, the voice of the customer, the voice of what's going on. Yeah. And so there, the currency I have there is I can instantly should be able to say, okay, well, I've got 7 customers that want to do X, or I've got 12 customers that want to do Y, or when I was in customer whatever last week, we need to do. So it's that, it's that.
You must have a unique view that if you can work across 20 or 30 different stakeholders, external stakeholders, and pull together the common threads of, broadly in these 3 buckets, this is where their problems are, these are where their problems are, what could we do to help? And
that's the interesting thing. So I talk about my 50% outbound as being Chief Talking Officer. A large portion of that isn't the talking bit, it's the listening. So yes, I stand up on stage, but actually, if you look at yesterday, I met 2 different of our customers in London. I met the CIOs and CTOs of both those companies, and actually all I did really was listen to what they were doing, listen to their problems, talk about what I'd seen in other customers, what we were doing in that area, but not necessarily, it's not a big sales pitch. But all of that I'm gleaning, I'm listening, I'm picking up what's going on in the market.
It must be quite hard not to pontificate. It must be quite hard. You must hear the same stories over and over and over again and think, okay, it's so easy for me to jump to the punchline, but actually I must continue to listen, because there'll be a nuance in there that I perhaps, if I do jump to the end, I won't have picked up.
I have to stop myself saying, let me stop you there. Because it's like, I've heard this 47 times in the last 2 months. So please, oh, you said you're going to have everything in the cloud within 3 years. Right, we're going to stop you there because you've not. It's that kind of thing. But it's always, you're right, it's kind of saying, no, let them finish. That's the interest for me.
Chief Patience Officer. so you have this unique position. Yeah. I think you've been able to bridge the difference between being a technologist and finding a common language in which to put your point across. And I've always enjoyed our conversations because I'm not a technologist. I have a broad understanding of it, but points have always landed with me, which I think is very, very helpful. And one of the things we were talking about before getting together was you have so many, you have to be up to speed on so many different technologies. So if I were to ask you, what does the world of technology look like, according to Joe, touching on a few of those points, I'll get the stopwatch going now. Where would you like to start that then? Where does the world of technology, according to Joe, start and finish?
I get asked to give. I mean, so there's a joke I have that there's certain things I have to mention, otherwise the CTO police turn up and take away my CTO badge. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So if I don't mention 5G and Edge, they're like, I'm done. But I think. I get asked to do after dinner speeches quite a lot, which I now do for charity. And I sort of say, okay, I'll come and do an after dinner speech or whatever for donate to my charity, which is a lifeboat. So I had to do one before Christmas, and so for that they sort of said, can you give us sort of 20 minutes of everything that's going on in tech? I'm like, wow, okay. So I sat down and thought about it and thought, okay, what would I do? And so I've got the notes here on my phone. So you have to apologise because I've got the notes from that very speech. But so there's some interesting quotes to think about when you think about technology to start with. My favourite is actually attributed to the physicist Niels Bohr, right? But it's all a bit unsure whether he actually said it or not. But its prediction is hard, especially about the future, which is true. And so people always ask me, and I get asked every year as a CTO, can you give us your predictions for 2020? And I go, no. Mainly because I don't want someone in 2025 to look back and go, look what that idiot said. It's like, you can't do that.
History is littered with them.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think I'm much more ascribed to sort of William Gibson, the sci-fi writer, who said the future's already here, it's just not evenly distributed. So you can find the future if you look hard enough, it's just not everyone's got it. There's pockets of what the future is. And so I suppose it's seeking out those pockets and understanding whether they're going to expand or not, I suppose, is the big thing. And Stuart Brand is a great one here. Once a new technology rolls over you, if you're not part of the steamroller, you're part of the road. That's quite a good one.
Yeah, I like that.
And so I think there's a whole list of things. So cloud is the obvious one, right? Everyone talks about cloud. Cloud's been the buzzword for the last 15 plus years of, ever since 2000, I suppose, really.
Buzzword and abused word, I would say as well.
Yeah, and I think that, the basic thing to come to with that is that cloud is no longer a place, right? People always looked at cloud as something or somewhere you go to. It's an operating model. It's a way that people can offer you services, compute, data analysis, you name it, that aren't in your data center, I suppose, is the best way to understand it. So once you go to people and say, okay, fine, cloud's not the next platform, it's not a destination, it's not a place, it's actually just someone else's computer being sold to me slightly differently. And once you understand there's benefits in that and there's drawbacks to that, I think that's where we're now getting to what we're really seeing as an industry is that hybrid is here to stay. So that's where you hear everyone talk about multi-cloud or hybrid cloud.
Yeah.
And really what you're seeing in that space is everyone's going, okay, fine, I'm not going to put everything in one cloud either. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick and choose from the clouds. But that doesn't mean I'm just arbitrarily spreading everything across all the clouds. What I'm doing is I'm going to say I'm going to go and use that bit of that cloud because they're really good at that. And I'm going to go and use that bit of that cloud because they're really good at that. And I'm going to construct the technology solutions that I'm building from all of these amazing choices I now have. So that's really cloud.
Well, and I think back to a cloud camp, probably a couple of years ago, where you had a very bright lady from a kind of legislative background.
Huan Hon.
That's right, absolutely, well remembered.
Absolutely amazing woman.
And that was a conversation around, I think it wasn't, we weren't talking about Brexit at the time, but it was around where is that data stored?
It's EU legislation, big challenge, yeah.
And is that developed at all?
Not really, no. I think there's various bits of trial casework that's gone on, but there's not really been any definitive answers to that. I think, again, the law always lags technology. This just, the law's a much bigger, slower machine. So we have challenges, and already it's giving us challenges in other areas like AI. AI is a real challenge now around the legal side of that because, just to divert down that route, here's a legal conundrum for you. There is no way to kind of protect the intellectual property of a trained system. So here's the best way to do it.
Okay.
If I've got a big data set, let's just say I've got 1 million faces, and you want to train your facial recognition system, you want to use my 1 million faces data set, you're going to train your system's going to learn how to recognize faces based on that 1 million faces data set. But there is no way for me to now try and assert intellectual property on your now trained system because it was my data set that did it. It's like going to learn Chinese at university and then me saying, okay, well, I now have intellectual property on the Chinese that's now in your head. You can't do that because there's no construct for that. So there is, the net worth legally of an untrained or a trained system is the same. It's really, it's a...
And that's
mind blowing for you.
It is, isn't it? What I find what slightly mind blowing is kind of software defined anything, because when systems are learning and teaching themselves, it opens up a totally brand new avenue to me of thinking. So I'm not quite at the Elon Musk end of AI that says the robots are going to take over the world, although there's probably, I understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
But it's going to be the application of AI to the benefit.
So I always talk about augmenting humans. Okay, and that's really what you do. We use technology to augment humans. We always have done. So if you look back through history, every type of technology, it's augmenting humans to achieve better things. So go back to when we first started using animals. We were using animals to augment our muscles because our muscles weren't strong enough, right, or to do that thing at scale. And we then went on, and if the entire industrial revolution was about, it's the end, muscle augmentation. Is put things in factories. Let's use steam. Let's find better ways to convert energy into work or useful work, and that's where factories
faster, more efficient, more effective.
But again, all you're doing is augmenting humans. But what you saw there was over that period of time, go back to tribal times, the best human was the one that was the strongest, right? That was it. It's that simple. If you're the strongest, muscliest bloke and it was blokes because they were generally bigger than women, you won and you were in charge and you were the tribal chief. Go forward to a technology application, it was no longer the strongest person in the village, it was now the most intelligent person in the village that could work out best how to use the technologies that are available. So there was that that's the big change in the Industrial Revolution, kind of the Renaissance, I suppose, really, and it allows people to then spend time on other activities. So you've now got it where people are competing based on brain power as opposed to competing on muscle. And you can draw this same level, and you go through military, it's the same thing. Now, I can augment my brain. Right? So this is the thing. So when you look at AI and machine learning, what you're actually looking at is it is there today for us. It's augmenting us daily in these things, right? Yes. And so we're augmenting our brains. So now actually it's no longer competing on brain power in a lot of cases because being the cleverest person might not necessarily give you the edge. It's having the best access to information. So now you think, what do we compete on next? Because if AI and ML is now mean we don't compete on our brains, and I think honestly, and I've thought about this a lot, is we're now down to competing on here, which is the heart piece of it, right? The emotion. And so I think the differentiation as we go forward as AI and ML augments our brains and augments our thinking capacity, decision-making capacity as we go forwards, that gives us a chance as humans to differentiate based on our emotional capacity in a way we couldn't before.
I was talking to someone the other day and they said that their daughter, I think it was, there's Philip Pullman's books that have been put into a couple of films and TV, where a character called Lyra has an avatar, and that is, it takes a number of different forms. And she said to him, totally innocently, well, it's like your phone, it's like when you talk to Siri. So one is supposed to be your conscience, but actually, if you're looking for directions, literally physically, or if you're looking to convert pounds to dollars, whatever it is, right. Hey Siri, whatever is this? That's the modern day equivalent of Philip Pullman's avatar. You think, no, I hadn't thought about it.
No, it's already. That's what I said. The future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed, right? Now, the thing there is, I think, is that, if you look at that from a how do we augment ourselves as humans with AI and ML and those kind of technologies, which is what we're really talking about here. It's medical. Let's think about medical. I want to go in, and if you look at Star Trek, right? So Star Trek, Bones has his hand scanner thing, which is essentially your ability it's a computer diagnosing you. But Bones is still there. So I think when you look at it, it's going to be, I want a computer to diagnose me. I want a computer to look at everything about me and then suddenly go, oh yeah, there was a guy who had exactly the same symptoms as you as Lithuania in 1997 and this is exactly what happened. I want that to happen. But then I want a human to hold my hand.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And I think that's where you're going to see the difference. I think that's where you're going to, doctors aren't going to be entirely replaced, they're going to be augmented, right? Yeah. Lawyers aren't going to be replaced. I mean, God, law is the most grey area known to anyone, not just man, but aliens, I think, right? So the fact that we think we're going to replace lawyers with AI is wrong. What you're going to replace is paralegals with AI. You're going to replace
the process.
Elements of the process with AI.
The grind with it,
But you can still have the arguments about what's right and wrong. And, my sort of ultimate challenge to people on that one is, would you like to be judged by a computer?
Yeah.
Right? Would you really, if you knew you were innocent, would you want to go up in front of a computer?
Yes. We're not there. We're not there into picking up the nuance, are we? The balance, the counter argument, as you said before, the emotional, behavioural piece of it.
Well, there's some very, very basic things. There's a really good. So one of my favourite YouTubers, I think is a guy called Tom Scott. He does some fascinating ones, but he's a fantastic technology, a whole bunch of other things, but he's also a trained linguist. He studies language. And there is a test, off the top of my head, I can't remember it, I was watching the video the other day, of a particular, computers can't understand nuance in language yet. If you can't do that, then it's why, Siri and these things are very basic in how they work. So if they can't do that, how on earth are they going to understand the nuances of law or whatever?
Half the emails I receive haven't got any nuance in them anyway. It's people can actually yet to understand how to write them, yet learn to appreciate them.
Let's go on to some of those.
I was going to say, what else?
Right, so Well, you've got IoT, Edge, and 5G, which kind of I want to put together, right? So IoT is kind of leading the change in innovation. It's driving Edge. And so IoT is the idea that I can connect everything to the internet. Mm-hmm. Now, that's great, but actually what you're seeing is it's driving a requirement of what's called edge computing, where people have realized that I literally can't connect everything back to one big data center in a cloud. What I've got to do is I've now got to distribute the processing because the networks aren't fast enough, right? So here's your perfect example. If I wanted to put facial recognition in a retail store, which is what you do quite a lot now, so they put facial recognition in there, not to see that it's you, but to see that a person that looks like you came in and they looked here, they looked here, they looked here, they did that, they walked out again. They don't care about your identity, they care about tracking you around the store and your patterns, right? Yeah. Now, I don't have the bandwidth to ship the video from all those video cameras in that store in real time back up to a cloud. It's just never going to happen. So I need to have local processing. So I have edge processing. And if we then look at that in the context of 5G, so 5G is, you know, the big cool thing everyone's talking about. Yes, that gives you more bandwidth and lower latency, but we need more density of the cells. So for every cell tower you've got now, you're going to need about 16 to do 5G because it's shorter range.
Is that right?
Oh yeah. So this is
wow.
These people that think 5G is going to solve rural broadband really need some kind of. But 5G is something that's really looking for use cases. Yes. Right now, there's again, you want to see the pockets of the unevenly distributed stuff. Google Stadia, Fortnite. That's what's going to drive 5G gaming. Okay. Right, so the ability that I can play real-time interactive gaming on here, but the compute power is in the cell tower, right? Nice. Not in my phone. Okay. So my phone becomes more just a big battery with a screen on it, less and less processor, because all the processing is being done in a computer that's only 500 yards away, but it's on top of the building. It's in the it's part of that. And so whether it's Fortnite, whether it's Google Stadia, which is streaming gaming, all that kind of stuff, you're going to see more and more 5G coming together with edge computing. Imagine this, right? This is a scenario I've talked about for years, and I'm going to use two company names here, but they're entirely relevant. So imagine I'm Vodafone, and I could turn around to William Hill and I could say, do you want to do football gambling? They go, yeah, we do football gambling. I said, do you want to put the front end of all your gambling services in the cell towers next to every football stadium every Saturday afternoon? You'll go, well, yeah, of course I would, because I'm going to be the fastest responding peer-to-peer. Yep. That's what you can do, and that's edge computing. So you're going to see more and more what we now think the cloud being somewhere over there in a data center in Slough, which is typically what it is, to now it's going to be distributed in bits and pieces everywhere. And
also the real estate's already there. The space is already there to house it, to cope with it.
Well, it's already there because these cell towers are already there. They've already got the racks there. Those racks are getting more condensed in terms of the kit that goes in them, more virtualized. It's going from dedicated telco kit that was, stuff from Siemens and, Alcatel-Lucent and stuff, now just to generic Dell HP servers running VMware actually, and then virtualized on top.
Does that then play out to your love for electric vehicles? As you're driving down the M40 with all these cell towers around you, being able to pick up more localized network through that?
I think what it ultimately allows us in a longer term view around autonomous vehicle deployment, that you can have interconnected vehicles that talk to each other. So the true power of autonomous vehicles is when vehicles can mesh network.
Yes.
Right, and so I think when you start to look at the future of networks, the vehicles have to be autonomous in that they have to exist on their own. They have to be able to work when they're not connected to a network. Mm-hmm. But there's a potential for them to absolutely come alive when they connect to other vehicles. And if you've got a very dense 5G mesh network, you've probably got the chance to do that. But each car would be its own 5G cell in that context, right? But what that means is every car you see driving the street, we're talking to each other. So as we're approaching a junction, I'm here, and you'll literally miss each other by centimeters. Yeah. Because it's all perfectly choreographed.
Oh. I'll look for that day.
Well, imagine, if you think about it now, right? If you think about the way the internet works.
That excites me.
Well, if you think about the way the internet works, right? The internet works exactly the same. We're routing immense amounts of traffic across incredibly dense networks in a highly complex way all the time. And all we're doing is shoving IP packets. Yeah. Take that, swap IP packets for cars, do that,
Right. So
the challenge is you've got about a 30, 40 year crossover when you've got people that aren't in that game driving alongside people that are, and bicycles and pedestrians and all the other stuff.
Yes, yeah. And there's that horrible complex kind of algorithm that I think you and I have discussed before. Car crossing a zebra crossing with a dog going across it, a lady pushing a pram.
Oh, so there's the classic one, the one that we talk about in autonomous vehicle decision making is called the trolley problem. And it comes from actually an old story about a trolley bus which was running on rails. Okay. And you've got a choice as you're going forward down this to move the points. And the point choice is, and this runaway train, this runaway trolley bus, is whether you run over an old person or a bunch of children, and it's which one do you, that's that ethical dilemma. And I think the problem is that we don't have that problem in the way we drive vehicles today because we don't get time to make the decision.
No.
But with a computer, it will have time to make the decision, and that's really the challenge.
Try and work that one out, Elon.
Well, try and attribute a value to a life.
Yeah, okay. It's got a bit heavy. Let's talk about one of our other...
3D printing.
I was going to say, yeah, what is your view? Because I bought a 3D printer. I printed out...
Cool. What have you printed with it, of anything useful?
A fantastic pen pot, bright yellow. The kids love it. And then it kind of just got a little bit dusty. And then I think I put it on eBay, if I'm totally honest with you.
So 3D printers is something that I've always looked at playing with, but and you know me, I don't need much justification to buy a gadget. I literally live in a house full of gadgets, but a 3D printer is the one that I don't have.
Okay.
And it's because I literally cannot see enough use for them yet. Now, granted, there's actually, I'm Tesla owner and stuff, and there's a bunch of people printing bits and pieces. So there's a particular, like a phone holder for the car and stuff. But what I found with that was I just contacted another Tesla owner who had a 3D printer and paid him 10 quid and he sent it to me rather than having to outlay on the printer. Yeah. If you really want to know sort of the future of 3D printing and what that's going to happen in that, there's a really good book by a guy called Cory Doctorow. It's free. It's on the internet, right? And it's called Makers.
Right.
Now, that book tells a story of a world where 3D printers have basically come of age. And the tipping point is when a 3D printer can print a 3D printer, right? Yeah. It's kind of cool, right? And then it's self-replicating to a point. And then it's the world where everyone's 3D printing everything that they need because they've not got the capability to do that. And it's much more interesting. So there's a really good sort of, what could happen in the future there. So 3D printing's great. We're using it to do some really cool stuff, particularly in aeronautics. Yes. If you've flown on any aircraft in the last 5 or 10 years, it was made in the last 5 or 10 years, there's 3D printed parts on that, 3D printed metal, because I can now 3D print things that you couldn't cast because of the shape of them. Yes. Yeah. Right. So I can 3D print those so they're lighter, stronger. So there's bits like that. There's all manner of places where 3D printing's been. Obviously, we're seeing it in prosthetics and some fantastic work done there. But I think there's a lot of opportunities around that. But I don't think it's mainstream yet. No, and I think it reduces the pressure on logistics. If you're producing these parts, I was talking to someone the other day around hip transplants, and how far are we away from being able to print one of those? In fact, actually, do it. You do it now.
But then it's the case of keeping it clean, keeping it. There's a whole kind of structure around it which prevents it from being adopted in the mainstream.